What is going on, YouTube? So it's a nasty rainy day, so I figured I'd go ahead and complete the entire ABC delete. If you guys are unfamiliar, the ABC delete on a 335d consists of a DPF delete, which is your diesel particulate filter, your SCR delete, which is like your DEF fluid catalyst, and last but not least, the EGR delete. So if you guys haven't already seen my previous videos, check out the DPF and SCR delete if you haven't already. This is the third part of the series where I'm going to delete the EGR. So first things first, go ahead and remove your cowl panel. It consists of a bunch of 8mm bolts, and you have this sensor right here. You just have to twist off and you can flop over to the side just like that. Your dress up cover are 5mm Allen head bolts. Go ahead and remove those, and you can just take the first part of the cover off. You do not have to remove the rear one. This power wire just clips and slides right off, so that will help you expose everything you need to get to the EGR. So what's next on the list here is to remove this screw and some Torx right here. So these happen to be T20s. You got two of them. And up top I have a Phillips screw, which I believe was supposed to be another T20. With those removed, you can go ahead and pull this box out, just like so. With this tube, you can just pry up right, and it will actually disconnect the clip itself. Now we have access to this large fan connector. We need to go ahead and disconnect this because the fan does have to be pulled out. So you just squeeze the sides of it. You may have to rock the connector out. Mine seems to be in there pretty nice and tight, so it may take a little bit of effort. And then we have two sets of T-screws. Let's figure out what size those are real quick. So on this top corner, it is a T25, and we also want to have another one on the opposite corner on the bottom of the fan assembly that we need to loosen up. And before we get to the bottom of the car, just go ahead and get this hose off these fan shroud clips. Okay, and with the car jacked up and supported, we need to remove some 8mm bolts to get this access panel loose. You just need to remove those three, and that gives us access to this, my bad, I hit the flash, to this bottom T25 right here on the cooler that we need to remove. Okay, there's actually two plastic guides holding the fan assembly on. I'm trying to focus on that one tab. It's sticking upright. I'll grab my screwdriver and point at it. Right there, it's blurry, but I ended up breaking that. And there's one on the other side. I'll show you guys. Right down there, you can see there's a little plastic nub on it. I'm gonna grab my screwdriver and show you guys. This is the passenger side one. So it's a little like plastic channel that the fan sits into. Like I said, I was trying to take the flathead to pry the driver side one out so I can pull the fan assembly up, and I accidentally ended up breaking it. It's no big deal because the screws will hold it down, so if you break yours, don't even worry about it. So to free up some more room to get this fan out, I went ahead and disconnected the throttle body connector. It's just two side tabs you gotta press in. I actually had to use a screwdriver to press in this side of the connector because it's up against the throttle body housing. But I had a screwdriver press up against it, took my thumb and rocked this sensor out. So now with this wiring kind of out of the way, there's a little channel right here. We can free up some more room and just kind of get this stuff over to the side, just like so. Now we can remove this intake tube from the throttle body so the fan can come straight on up. So to remove this intake tube, I'm just taking a small thin flathead, getting it underneath this little spring clip here, pulling upright on it, and now we can wiggle this out. Looks like you have to push this in just to clear this sensor right here. And now this intake tube can kind of shift out to the side, and we can pull this fan out real quick. So with the intake tube pressed forward, you can go ahead and start rocking your fan assembly out, just like so. So now we have much more room to access the EGR cooler itself. The hardest part is going to be accessing these T-bolts that hold the cooler up to the exhaust. So getting to them is probably going to be the most difficult part, and then trying to install the block-off plate seems like it's going to be very difficult. So now we can focus on removing these coolant hoses. We are going to lose some coolant. I've took some pressure off the coolant reservoir by taking the cap off. So I'm going to grab a container, because as soon as we disconnect this, we're going to lose coolant. So just make sure you have a towel underneath the car handy, and then we can go ahead and start removing this. So I have a small towel in place. As you can see, I have this cup here. So I'm going to try and catch some of this fluid out. So you need a little pick to get inside the plastic housing there. There's a spring clip inside this as well. So once you have that pulled out, you can actually remove the hose. So I'm going to try to do this off camera, just so I have both hands trying to collect as much coolant as possible. So as you can see, you are going to lose quite a bit of coolant. You can see this cup's already filling up, and this little nipple that I disconnected the hose from is leaking as well, and it's dripping on the floor. So make sure you have a towel to try to collect all this stuff. Looks like the coolant is starting to run along the skid plate. Now it's draining over there, so let me get a towel for that. Okay, so now after you have created a huge mess, you can just go ahead and pull this vacuum solenoid off this bracket, because it doesn't matter if you break it or not, it's not going to be reused. This connector has another metal clip that you can just pull upright on, and it will disconnect it from this vacuum solenoid. So this wiring harness and connector we can just tuck over to the side. We are no longer going to use that. So remove this rag out of the way. We can go ahead, disconnect these vacuum lines. Your EGR kit should have a cap to cap off this vacuum line. So we can go ahead and disconnect this T. So my vacuum line was old and brittle. I didn't want to end up breaking this T, so I just took a razor blade and split this to get this vacuum line off. So this vacuum line is going to run to this little actuator down here. You can just keep this stuff over to the side if you want, or it doesn't matter if you pull it off, because it's all getting deleted anyway. So next, just slide back on this gray tab, disconnect this connector. You can go ahead and pull this out, because we're going to delete this tube right here for the EGR. And next up, we're going to make another mess. We have another coolant hose we need to disconnect right here on the bottom of the cooler. Same principle with the other coolant hose. You just pull up on this clip, then you can disconnect this hose. But I'm going to do this off camera, because I'm going to attempt to collect more coolant. Okay guys, so when you disconnect that bottom coolant hose, you are going to lose a lot of coolant. As you can see, I'm using a 32-ounce cup. It wasn't enough. I actually filled and dumped that thing 4 separate times. So yeah, major heads up, this is going to be a very messy job. Add coolant to your list of EGR delete items, because you will need about 1.5 gallons to replenish your coolant system after this. So after dumping about 1 gallon's worth of coolant onto the floor, I just went ahead and decided to try to pinch this coolant line off, because once you disconnect it, I mean, you're just going to lose so much coolant. I did not expect to lose that much. So now that the entire engine block is drained of coolant, we can go ahead and start removing the actual EGR cooler. So let's do the easy things first. We can go ahead, take a flathead, and undo this clamp right here to get this EGR tube off. Okay guys, I wish I could tell you that there was an easier way to get to these T45s holding the EGR to the exhaust port, but as you can see, I have an extension ran right there. You can kind of see the top one, fairly easy to get lined up. The bottom one, we are going to have to just do by complete feel. So I'm trying to get in there and show you guys that top one. It's a bit of a pain in the butt to try to get it focused, because it's such a tight fit in there, but you can see it from up top. You can see the extension down there. I'm trying to get this camera to focus. It's not going to, but your bolts are down in there. And let me try to zoom in, maybe it will focus. You can see my extension, but yeah, they're T45s. There's 2 of them. I'm on the top one right now, and there is a bottom one that you cannot see. You just have to go by feel. Okay, and of course BMW decided to use an aluminum bolt, so I can even use a magnet to pull it out. But now that it's loosened up, I'm gonna see if I can't get my camera in here to show you guys exactly where it is located. There it is. That's the top one. As you can see, I have it backed out to T45. So I was actually lucky enough to line it up the first time on the bottom one. So I have both of them out. And now we have 2 13mm, one right here, and then another right here underneath that vacuum pump right there. So I removed those 2 13mm bolts. I was getting a little hung up on this V-band right here, but after I wiggled it free, the EGR just kind of will come out in one piece. You just have to caress it out. But these coolant hoses are in the way. But yeah, now we got this big piece of crap out, and now we can block everything off and drip some coolant on the floor too, why not? So your EGR kit should come with coolant block-offs. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this metal clip out, and let's go ahead and remove this coolant hose completely and block it off. Okay, so bad news with my very cheap EGR kit. This is for a European spec M57, and these coolant block-offs are not even remotely close to working on the US spec M57. So what I'm going to do is just create a bypass hose. So I'm going to take a razor blade and cut off this connector right here, and I'm going to run a coolant hose from this connector right here and run it back to the block. And I got to figure out a way to make it not run up against the serpentine belt. As you can see, it's going to be very, very taut, and I do not want the belt to rub through the bypass coolant hose that I'm about to make. So what I've done here is cut off the section that went to the EGR cooler, the quick release connector that was right here. And what I'm going to do is add some lube to the silicone hose, and I'm going to run it all the way up against this connector, so you can still see it's got this shape that will keep this hose from rubbing up against the serpentine belt. So as you guys can see, I've run the silicone hose up against the hard line, and I just put a little worm clamp on it to tighten it down so I don't have to worry about any leaks occurring. So I'm going to go ahead and test fit this on right now and run it to the other coolant connector. So here's the final product. As you guys can see, it's very crude. I just created a coolant bypass. Instead of using the block off caps, I just reused the existing quick connect coolant fasteners and just attached a silicone hose to them. I used the existing hard plastic line right here to give it shape and keep the hose from rubbing up against the serpentine belt. As you can see, that routes just like it did factory, so that keeps this hose from getting rubbed through on the belt. It's very crude, but hopefully it's effective. So I'm going to give you guys a quick view of the EGR on the exhaust side. So that is what we need to block off. So we're going to try to line everything up. So I've come to the conclusion, to get this exhaust plate started on, you will need the patience of a saint. It's just a really big pain in the butt. This gasket keeps separating from the plate. I have some copper RTV trying to cure right now to keep this plate, this gasket and plate in one piece. So hopefully this will cure and make things a little bit easier, but right now it's just very frustrating. Since that is curing, I'm going to go ahead and remove the throttle body. So your throttle body is held in by 3 5mm Allen head bolts, and she just pulls right off just like that. So to make things easier, I'm just going to go ahead and remove this bracket. This is a 11mm, and then we have another torque screw right here to get this bracket off, and then we should be able to get better access to the 4 5mm Allen head bolts. This little bracket is held in by a T25. Now we can get better access to those 5mm Allen heads. So the bottom two are pretty frustrating to get to, so I just use a regular Allen wrench. The longer the better. Just look inside that. That is disgusting. So you can definitely tell we're gonna free up some airflow. So now we'll just line up this race pipe and go ahead and bolt it down. It comes with a new gasket, but I think this O-ring is all that we really need. So I'm just gonna go ahead and bolt this on. So when you line this back up, just make sure like within this triangle, you have the point of the triangle facing up when you set this in place. So now the throttle body will set back in the proper orientation that it came off. Okay, when you're assembling everything back together with your 5mm Allen heads, just torque everything in together, ease everything in at once, and then torque everything in a little sequence. So throttle body's back on, so hopefully this thing will be ready to go and we can try to get that exhaust block off plate on. So 2 10s and a flat head to loosen up these 2 intake clamps. I just went ahead, took the air box off just to see if I can't get a better visual on this exhaust port down here that we need to block off, and so far it doesn't really seem like it helped much, but maybe I can get some better light in there and see if I can't get this thing started up. It's gonna be a pain in the butt. So my strategy is to use this long screwdriver to get it kind of lined up in one of the holes. As you can see, I got it in the top hole. Now I'm gonna try to push the block off plate up against the exhaust and start the bottom one with an extension in the socket if I can. So the bolts that came with my kit are 14mm. So I'm gonna try to feed that in once I get this plate pushed up against the exhaust and see if we can't work it in. So I don't know if you guys can see what my strategy is here, but I'm trying to get this plate lined up with the bolt holes, and I have my extension and socket on with the 14mm bolt. So as you can see, I'm gonna have to move the plate over. Actually, I might have to use my phone to help guide me. So I'm gonna grab this extension. It'd be great if I can catch this all in video so you guys can see what I'm working with here. So I have to back the bolt out a little bit. I think I have it pushed in too much. So I'm gonna try to back that out. Okay, let's see. I think that might be it. Let me try to thread that in. But if I don't get this to first try, I hope you guys can kind of see what my strategy is here. Using the screwdriver to hold it in place, and then I'm using this extension to hopefully get a bolt threaded in place. So I don't think I got it in yet, or maybe I did. So now the bottom one is kind of tight in there. So I'm gonna remove the screwdriver and put in the second bolt. So I went ahead and pulled out my long screwdriver that I was using as a guide just to see if the top bolt hole is going to line up, and it looks like it's just a little off, but I think we can get that to kind of line back up when I start the top bolt. So yeah, so that's the easy way of doing it, or the easiest way I've found so far of trying to get this plate started. Okay guys, so as you can see, I was actually able to get it started in using that method. Is it the best way? Probably not, but for me it was the easiest, and I was able to get everything lined up. So let's just hope that the gasket doesn't blow out. I've heard bad things about these cheaper EGR kits blowing out down here at the exhaust side. So if push comes to shove, like I said, we'll buy the USA version. The block off plate actually has this little dimple. There's concave cone that actually fits in place of the exhaust port, and it really seals it up. But I'm hoping this will hold, so now we can actually start buttoning up. So now I'm putting everything back together in the reverse order. I just finished putting up this intake hose and air box back in place. Honestly, I don't think you guys need to take that apart. I'm gonna go ahead and put that one nut back on for that bracket. I'm not gonna reuse that bracket that we took off for that original EGR pipe. So I'll put that nut on just to have it on, and then I guess we can start working the fan back in place. This is the 11mm nut I was talking about. Let's go ahead and tighten it up. So to get this fan started back in place, you might have to push on this cooler a little bit. to open up the gap for it to slide down, and this intake tube. Might want to fight with you guys a little bit, but just watch for that. And this hose right here, don't want to break it, that's plastic. So like I said, when you're going back in, just watch out for your hoses. If you guys use an actual US spec EGR delete, then you won't even have to worry about the bypass hose that, you know, of course I have, that's makeshift. And then your hard line, plastic line, make sure you don't hit it, this hose, and the cooler down there. I want to hook this hose back up and then put the throttle body connector back on, and then don't forget to cap off this T for your vacuum line, or you will have a vacuum leak. So vacuum cap, I zip tied these connectors. I just have them kind of tucked underneath this race pipe, and then I went ahead and snapped the intake tube back on, throttle body connectors in place, clipped in its little rightful channel. Now we can go ahead and start hooking up our fan. And remember those screws, you got one on each corner. Don't forget your bottom T25 and your top T25 when you're putting your fan shroud back together. Now we can put the skid plate back on. Don't forget to button up your undercarriage tray. And before we lower the car, we need to add coolant back to the system and start the car and check for any leaks. So just to fill up this reservoir, it took about 1.5 gallons. I'm going to start the car, check for leaks, and then I'm going to double check this reservoir and top it back off. Okay, I have the car running right now. I don't see any signs of obvious leaks from the bypass. So I'm going to double check this, especially this bottom one here. Make sure it's not contacting the belt in any way. It looks like it's not, but just in case, I'm going to keep an eye on it, let the car run for a little bit, and let this coolant circulate through so we can top off the reservoir. So far, so good, no leaks. Good news, no leaks. Let's top off this coolant reservoir and start putting our cowl and dress-up cover back on. And then we can lower the car, drive it, and double check the coolant reservoir. So that little intake tube piece right there just snaps back into place. Now we can get this and muscle it in place and try to get this to snap inside real quick. And that's a wrap. And moral of the story, guys, you get what you pay for. This is what happens when you cheap out and buy a $30 EGR delete kit like I did, instead of paying top dollar for the actual US spec. I think it's $180 after you pay the tariffs and taxes and stuff. So anyways, I made this work, like I said, for 30 bucks. I really can't complain too much. I mean, the block-off plate is working, it's not leaking. My bypass system that I created is working, it's not leaking. And we have the coolant topped off, everything's back together, the car runs great. I know we are definitely getting more airflow, and you know, the EGR was already deleted via the tune, but now it's physically deleted, and we don't have to worry about the EGR cooler exploding, which is a common issue on these cars. And as you guys seen, if that thing was to crack and leak, you're going to lose all of your coolant really quickly. So guys, there it is. That is an EGR delete, and that concludes the whole ABC delete series that I have created on my 2011 BMW 335d. As always, guys, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more.